Hey everyone, it's me, Matt. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing great. We've had another beautiful week of weather here in Florida. It's still been really hot and we've still had rain every afternoon. We actually had some rain last night, but that's just typical weather this time of year here in Florida. So in today's video, I'm up early before the heat of the day and I thought I'd swap out two of the containers leading up to my front door with some new plants perfect for summer. So let's get started. So jumping right into it, here's the two containers I'll be working with today. You can see I've already cleaned and prepped these containers. They previously had some Juncus, Snapdragons, Alyssum, and Dusty Miller that I planted way back at the end of November for the holidays, and they lasted through the entire spring. But over the last few weeks, with all the Florida heat, they've started to really struggle, especially the Snapdragons and Alyssum. I did salvage the Juncus and Dusty Miller and planted them in between the two Adirondack chairs in my front yard. These plants can withstand Florida's summer, so I thought I'd keep them in my landscape. I then refreshed the soil in my two containers with some Miracle-Gro potting mix. I recently saw a soil comparison test video on the Epic Gardening channel, and this soil did the best out of 14 potting mixes that were tested, so I thought I'd give it a try. I'll be sure to link the soil comparison test video in the description of this video for reference. It was really interesting. So here we are with two fully prepped containers. I wanted to reiterate that it's really important to change out the soil in your containers when changing out your seasonal flowers. Flowering plants are heavy feeders and your new plants benefit tremendously from fresh, nutrient-rich potting soil. So looking at my plants for today's project, you can see I've got a beautiful assortment of annuals and perennials. Looking at my first plant variety, I picked up two fernleaf lavender plants. These are a flowering perennial, so they last multiple seasons and come back year after year. I figured I'd use them in my summer containers and then I can transplant them out into my front garden after. These lavender plants like full sun. They need 6 or more hours of sun per day. Once mature, they can grow as tall as 3 feet high, including their tall flowers, and about 2 feet wide, so they definitely can't stay in my containers permanently. These plants are heat tolerant, and once established, they're drought tolerant. These plants also attract all the pollinators, and they're hardy in USDA zones 9 through 11, but they can be grown as annuals in lower zones. Next, I picked up this tray of yellow marigolds. I thought the yellow flowers really complemented the bluish-purple color of the lavender flowers. These plants also like full sun, and they thrive in our hot Florida summers. This variety has a mounding growth habit and should get about 12 inches tall and 8 inches wide. These plants are drought tolerant, they're deer resistant, they attract all the pollinators with their big yellow blooms, and they're predominantly grown as annuals in all USDA zones. The last plant variety I picked up for my container project are these wire vines. These plants are a creeping ground cover. They can take full sun to part sun. They grow about 4 to 6 inches tall, but spread about 18 to 24 inches wide. They work great in containers as spilling plants. They can bloom, but they're typically grown for their foliage. They're really low maintenance, and they're hardy in USDA zones 8 through 10, but can be grown as annuals in lower zones. So I'm really excited about this plant combination. All these plants are going to do great together in my containers. I'm using the Thrill Fill Spill planting technique for this project. The lavenders are my thrill plants with their tall spiky blooms. The marigolds are my fill plants with their mounding growth habit. And the wire vines are my spill plants with their vining growth habit. So let's get all these plants planted in my containers. All done, don't these containers look great? These plants all look so beautiful together, and I love how the plants contrast with my black containers. I really like all the colors and leaf textures, and I'm loving the way the wire vine is spilling out over the sides. I think this turned out really good. As far as watering goes, I'm going to water these plants daily as they settle in, and after a week or so, I should be able to back off a little once they start establishing themselves. When it comes to fertilizer, you may have noticed I didn't amend the soil with any slow-release granular fertilizer like I usually do. My Miracle-Gro potting soil was already amended. It's supposed to feed for 6 months, so I shouldn't have to fertilize these plants at all this summer. However, I will keep an eye on them and add them to my water-soluble fertilization rotation later this season if they start struggling. So now that the planting project is done, I wanted to give you an update on my front porch seasonal flower bed as well as the impatiens that I transplanted into my backyard shade garden. I'm going to make it quick because it's getting hot. It's not even 9 a.m. and I'm melting out here in this heat. So starting off with my front porch flower bed, this is where I planted the white Gara and the light blue and dark blue Scaevola fan flowers. This bed is settling in nicely and the plants are doing good. I will say, full transparency, I had to replace all the Scaevola plants 2 days after planting. Every single one shriveled up and died within 48 hours. Something of that scale has never happened to me before. When I went back to the Lowe's Garden Center to get replacements, I noticed their Scaevola display section was protected under a shade structure even though the plants are rated for full sun. I'm thinking the plants came from a protected greenhouse environment at the growing facility, then they were displayed in a shadier, more protected area at the garden center, so they never were fully acclimated to a full sun environment. So when I planted them in full sun, they immediately went into shock and died. So for this second round of plants, I used the hardening off approach. When I got them home, I left them in their containers and let them sit in this area in the sun for about an hour on the first day. Then I moved them to some shade. Then on the second day, I let them sit in the sun for about 2 hours, and then I moved them back to the shade. Then on the third day, I let them sit in the sun for about 3.5 hours. Each day, I let them sit in the sun for a little longer until I planted them in the ground on day 5. So far, that approach has worked. These plants are doing much better, and I can't wait for them to really spread and fill in this space. Coming to my backyard shade garden, look how great my purple and white impatiens are looking. They're really settling in. You can see how the leaves are a much deeper green compared to when I transplanted them 2 weeks ago. They're also putting on a ton of new growth at their bases. These plants are really rebounding nicely. And then in front here, check out my beautiful caladiums. I can't believe how big they've gotten. They've easily doubled in size since I planted them. And then of course, as some plants rebound, others begin struggling. Something has started to eat this double up white begonia and this hosta. I ordered some bug and slug killer to hopefully take care of this problem, but overall I'm really happy with all the progress my shade garden has made. So that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed my front flower bed and back shade garden updates, and I hope I've inspired you to plant up some beautiful summer containers of your own. Remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons so you can follow along in future videos. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.